That's the magic of stage design at this level. You don't know where you're headed either, but you got a damn good idea. Sometimes you have a show that is, you know it's going to be a disaster. You know it has to be as good as you can make it. But at the Broadway level, 40% of the shows are going to run a week. But you better do it well. Even if you know the situation is really impossible, you have to pretend as if it's as important as any, because A, you may be wrong, and B, the show may run forever, and if that's the case, you better be right about what you've just done.
From NCPR, welcome to Northwards. People, ideas, and conversations from and about Northern New York, Vermont, and beyond. I'm Mitch Teich.
Support for the Northwards podcast comes from the J.C. Steiniger and M.E. McDonald Charitable Fund at Adirondack Community Foundation in support of the Adirondack Community Foundation, building stronger Adirondack communities. Ugh.
That's a Dateline story.
Absolutely it is, yeah. Robert Duvall died.
Oh, really?
You really have not listened at all today.
I have not. I've literally got into my office. It was 10:53 when I sat down because I worked this weekend.
Oh, right. You worked at Adirondack Whiteout Weekend.
Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
That counts.
So I got in. It was 10:53.
Hang on, you know that you're the boss, right?
I know.
You can just come and go when you want.
Well, yeah, but it's but I don't want to be the boss that just shows up at 10:53, even though that's exactly who I was.
That's what you did, though.
So I sat down. It's 10:53, and I turn my computer on, and it reminds me that I have a meeting at 11.
Oh my God.
A meeting that I thought was at 1 o'clock, even though, clearly it was on my schedule. So I was glad I got in at 10:53, got on the Google Meet, finished that.
There's a joke there, I'm sure. But
I got on the Google Meet, and then immediately had a phone call.
Wait, I got the joke. New from Oscar Mayer, the Google Meet. It's like baloney, but
yes, exactly.
but it's fine-tuned to your specific algorithm
I am
taste.
a fan of the ground Google Meet generally, but the Google patties.
Gross. Ugh. Make me feel bad.
Google loaf.
So you had your meetings, and now you're
Then I
here.
had a phone call. Then I started editing audio, which required my headphones to be on, so I wasn't listening to the radio. Mm-hmm. At 1 o'clock, I had another meeting.
It's never ending.
I got done with that meeting, walked out of my office, and immediately found out that our coworker she's not betrothed yet. That would be married, but she's engaged to be betrothed.
She's to be betrothed.
TBT, as the kids say.
So that was another
or
impromptu
TBB,
meeting.
I guess that would be.
Right. That's what the kids say.
TBBT.
To be betrothed. TBB. Yeah.
Yeah. So I haven't listened to the radio. Robert Duvall died, did he?
Robert Duvall died. It sucks.
What was he doing?
What was he doing that caused his...
So he was not holding up a liquor store or something?
No, he was 95. I think he just died because he was 95. I love Robert Duvall. He's a big, this is weird to say, but a big actor for my family because he was the star of Lonesome Dove, that Western miniseries by Larry McMurtry. Love Robert Duvall. It sucks that he died, but he's 95. Yeah. He had a good run.
And I will confess that he is in the list of people that I was not aware was still alive.
Oh, well, he hadn't acted in a really long time. I think he kind of
fell off the radar in some ways.
Yeah. But anyway.
But his work lives on. I mean, that
absolutely.
I think that's the thing. An actor that had been active for so long.
70 years.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he died, but in some ways, can a person like that ever really be dead?
Right. Yeah. People will be talking about his work for The Godfather is one of the most important movies ever made. And he's an integral part of that. People are going to be talking about his career for forever, probably. All of us could only hope to achieve a 100th of that significance.
Why are we being so philosophical?
I don't know.
Now?
We normally don't do this.
No.
How was your Valentine's Day?
My
Valentine's
Day was spent at the Adirondack Whiteout Weekend.
Oh,
actually.
And Gretchen didn't want to go with you.
She did not want to go with me. We're not really a Valentine's.
We're not really. when we first started dating,
Yeah,
we weren't.
exactly.
We like the weird thing is like when we first started dating, we were like, we don't care about Valentine's Day. But just like over the course of time, it's become not significant, but we always do something. This weekend we went to Cornwall and we watched the new Wuthering Heights movie, and we got dinner. Wuthering Heights was like kind of tame, which it was good. It was beautiful.
Kate Bush music?
No, there's no Kate Bush music, though we did talk a lot about Kate Bush's music after. There was supposed to be a lot of music by Charlie XCX, but she wasn't really prominent in the movie either. It's a case where, you watch a trailer for a movie and you expect one thing, and then when you actually sit down, you get something totally different. That's exactly what happened here. So
little bait and switch on the
totally
trailer producer's part.
Exactly. And like we were expecting the movie to be like really like gross and nasty because the filmmaker's previous movie was, but it was just like, it was
Why
really
would Wuthering
tame.
Heights be gross and nasty?
Well, because did you see the movie Saltburn? You probably didn't.
Did I see the movie Saltburn?
You don't watch movies. Okay, so this movie Saltburn was like really gross and really like it was a lot of like full frontal nudity and people doing gross things and people betraying one another. And so when the trailer for this came out and that filmmaker's name was attached to it, the trailer was like very high energy, like lots of like electro-pop music behind it and quick cuts, and like you're seeing some of like these uncomfortable moments in the trailer, and then the movie is just like that stuff is like kind of there. But so like, yeah, why would Wuthering Heights be like gross and nasty? But I was led to believe
prejudice in a way you've never seen.
Now with guns.
Yeah, right.
So like, okay, that being said, like it sounds like I'm crapping on the movie, but
becomes I don't know why I'm quoting Pride and Prejudice, referencing
it's
Pride,
totally
but
different.
I mean,
of that like
the
romantic
Wuthering
area.
becomes the Heights.
This time it's personal.
Yeah.
So it was okay. It was like, I don't know. It was like a beautiful movie, like all of these wonderful like rolling hills and stuff, and the acting was great. But will I watch it again? Probably not. Yeah. So you didn't do anything for Valentine's Slimes?
No, I got my wife two nice things that she very much enjoys: chocolate sea salt caramels,
Okay.
and a giant Bavarian pretzel.
Oh, cool.
I have nothing else to add.
Aren't
to
you
that.
the pretzel guy, or you're
I
both
am the
pretzel
guy.
guys?
Well, no, I am the pretzel guy. However,
You converted her to pretzeldom.
when we lived in Milwaukee, there is a company there called the Milwaukee Pretzel Company.
Okay.
That was founded by a couple of people who spent a year in Bavaria and became very attached to the way they make pretzels there.
Okay.
And came back and started a pretzel company. And it has grown into this enormous business. They were featured on the Pretzel Podcast, the previous podcast that I hosted before this one. And I actually got to take a tour with my co-host. We went behind the scenes at the Milwaukee Pretzel Company and made pretzels, rolled out the dough and tied them in pretzel shapes, and they were eventually sold to people who had no idea the two radio station employees had made these pretzels.
How long does it take to become a pretzel twisting pro? PTP,
that's a good
if you will.
question. Not as long as you might imagine.
Okay.
There's definitely a technique, but doing it for like 20 minutes in a...
You kinda got it down.
Yeah, I kind of got it down, but very much kind of. Like the people who work there and twist these every day, I wouldn't imagine it'll take too many days before you become proficient. However, the upshot to the story is the Milwaukee Pretzel Company has gotten big enough that they now sell occasionally, not all the time, but you can get their Bavarian Beast at Aldi.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
So like the beast implies that it's
Like
enormous.
it comes in something the size of almost like a pizza box.
It's that big.
It is not like a 20-inch pizza box, but it is very large.
Right.
Yeah, and is easily big enough that 3 or 4 people can sit there tearing pieces off of it. And there was a beer garden at the local pool because it's Milwaukee and there are beer gardens everywhere. But our local municipal pool had a beer garden and they sold these pretzels there.
Cool.
And you could get it with your choice of, you had your regular yellow mustard, your stone ground mustard.
Right.
And then the thing that she really likes, orange marmalade,
Oh,
which you would
Ooh.
never think of, but
no.
is a perfect accoutrement in some ways for a big Bavarian pretzel.
And that was going to be my next question: is Gretchen a mustard or like a caramel kind of dip person?
She is an orange marmalade person.
And you?
I am much more of a mustard person.
I am caramel. I don't think.
Really?
I don't think I've ever had mustard on a pretzel.
Caramel on pretzels?
Oh my God! Are you kidding me?
I am not kidding you.
You've never tried it?
No.
Oh, Mitch.
I see
Bubby.
pretzels as a savory thing, man.
You've never had a cinnamon sugar pretzel with caramel dip?
That's a dessert.
It's a pretzel.
That's a dessert.
Oh
man.
my God. You're so elitist about pretzels. I've said that before, and now you're proving my point. So did you, okay, I know that this is the case for me and Aaron and many other couples, but you just kind of become each other as the relationship goes on. So has that happened with you and Gretchen? Like she wasn't a pretzel person, but you kind of forced her to become one?
Yeah, that is why she likes pretzels and baseball. I'm not sure she was an anti-pretzel person before, right. But she certainly has become more of a pretzel consumer than she was before we were married a long time ago. I will say that and they're not paying me to say this, but the Milwaukee Pretzel Company does make the closest thing to a real Bavarian pretzel that I have had outside of Bavaria.
Good to know.
And I had no idea until we went to Germany and Austria a couple of years ago. Mm-hmm. But the experience is, I mean, they have really replicated it in a very holistic way.
So when I see the giant beast pretzel at Aldi, I'll pick it up.
It's in the freezer case right now.
Okay.
That case like across from the meat section.
Right. The Google Meats. To bring it back around.
All comes back around.
So who are we talking to today, Mitch?
Well, earlier we were mentioning Robert Duvall's long career in Hollywood. I actually had a chance to meet with some people who have also had very long careers in a couple of corners of show business, not movies, but Clarke and Barbara Dunham. They're mainly retired now, but for decades, Clarke was a leading and award-winning set designer for stage productions. Everywhere from Broadway and off-Broadway to Chicago to summer stock in places like Lake George. Many of those sets were designed and built in this massive studio they have on their property in the metropolis of Pottersville. Pottersville is in the southern Adirondacks, easily accessible off the Northway. And they were built by teams of people who would come up there and stay in the lodge that was also the Dunham's house. But the studio was also where Clarke and Barbara constructed sets for a side venture, model trains. And these are not just the kind that you have in your basement that you went to the toy store and bought. These were really complex model train sets that ended up in places like visitor centers and the Citicorp Center in New York City.
So it's not like something small like you'd buy in a hobby shop.
Well, the trains themselves are those size.
Oh, okay.
But this was, they would build whole worlds. Just amazing. They, like thousands of people would come every year to the Citicorp Plaza in New York City and, see like what they did with the train display that year. And for a while, they had a museum in Pottersville called Railroads on Parade. I think one of our colleagues down the hall remembers taking her kids to Railroads on Parade years ago.
I think that was a Rage Against the Machine song.
So I had a chance to visit with Clarke and Barbara and their daughter Pamela Ricker in Pottersville not long ago. Our interview today, because I spent so much time with them, we're presenting our interview today, appropriately enough, in 3 acts.
Okay.
We start with the beginning of Clarke and Barbara's long life and work together as told around the Dunham's dining room table. If I understand correctly, I mean, your first date was that Clarke needed a date for the junior prom.
Right.
But if I understand correctly, the two of you then went on to work together in high school theater?
No, I was not in his high school.
Oh.
We got married, we were 17 and 18. And we did, it was less than stock, the local Philadelphia things. I worked with him also in the music fairs. I was really pregnant when I was pushing scenery around with Rick, number one son. And we did work together until...
We were billed as co-designers.
Yeah, for a number of years.
Music fairs.
And then what happened was it was just not possible.
Do you remember the first production you worked on together?
I can probably go out there if you want. If you want to turn that off, I'll get it for you and show you the book. Because in the program, we're in our wedding clothes. There are a year's worth of programs, so I just brought in the first one.
Oh, and there you are. Oh, my God.
Yes.
Designer Barbara and Clarke Dunham. A young husband and wife team of designers have been associated with various theater productions for some years. Mr. Dunham's sets for Tovarich and their joint designs for Grass Harp and 13 Clocks received high praise. Their extensive work in theater in the round includes the first off-Broadway productions of Flahooley, Finian's Rainbow, Oklahoma, South Pacific, and Male Animal. In addition to design, both have acted, Mr. Dunham playing the lead roles in musicals and plays. Mr. Dunham spent the summer of 1955 working under David Hayes at the Berkshire Music Festival. Both are scholarship students at the Tyler School of Fine Arts, Philadelphia.
Isn't that cute?
It is cute. And it strikes me that there aren't that many people in the world who find something that they love to do when they're 15, 16, 17, 18 years old and really love it as much through their entire lives as they did when they got interested in it at such a young age.
Well, I was connected amazingly to the legendary batch of Broadway contributors, authors. When can an 8-year-old remember having ridden down to the Jersey Shore in an open convertible playing 20 Questions with Dorothy Parker? I don't believe that myself, but I did it. And it was done for me because I was just coming along, but Dottie didn't think so. So there we are in the back seat of an open convertible playing 20 Questions. And that goes on to people after people after people. The amazing lineage in this is just beyond what I can believe. The long, wonderful relationship my family had, and then I personally had afterwards with E.Y. Yep Harburg, the creator of musical after musical after musical, not to mention
Wizard of Oz.
The Wizard of Oz.
I've heard of that.
By the way. These were all amazing people at the same level of just being people. Oh, by the way, that's what they were.
And the letter we have upstairs from Sean O'Casey, which I think is very funny. A note to Clarke: congratulations on getting married, but better still, you found a life in the theater.
I was going to say, I read a study about children, small children, who have an imaginary friend or an imaginary world that they create, and the long consequences of that in terms of them becoming problem solvers and divergent thinkers and mental health, positive benefits. And this is what the trains are offering people. This is what the plays are offering people, a chance to go into that imaginary world and see the other possibilities.
That's Pam Ricker, daughter of Clarke and Barbara Dunham. We'll get back to the model trains in a few minutes, but we all trooped across the Dunham's property to the large barn where the stage sets they built came together over the years. The sets themselves aren't there now, but there are tables around the studio that hold renderings, models of sets. And some of the models, frankly, you could just imagine yourself immersed in. You'd like to do kind of, I don't know, either an Alice in Wonderland thing and shrink yourself and exist in these models. Some of which came to be these models of sets, some of which came to be as he imagined them, others for plays that were never made. For Act 2 of our episode today, I asked Clarke Dunham about the way the process went, from his imagination to the models in front of us to the sets that graced stages across the country.
That's the magic of stage design at this level that you don't know where you're headed either quite, but you got a damn good idea. And if you're lucky, you're right. And if you're partly lucky, that's okay, because that's why you got time to go redesign it till it's right. And I think most of my time has come out pretty well. Sometimes you have a show that is, you're being paid to do it. You know it's going to be a disaster. You know it has to be as good as you can make it anyhow. But at the Broadway level, 40% of the shows are going to run a week. That's just the way it is. You know it. You cannot allow yourself to believe that, because it's what you do. Again, everything comes back to it's what you do. But you better do it well. Even if you know the situation with this particular production is really impossible, you have to not pretend, but behave as if it's as important as any, because A, you may be wrong, and B, the show may run forever, and if that's the case, you better be right about what you've just done.
And if it does close after a week, you don't want it to be because the set was the problem.
No, that's absolutely correct. And every once in a while, you are condemned to working on a show that just can't happen, that you can't really help. And sometimes you're just wrong. But I don't think I've felt that way very often.
Well, and you wouldn't have done it for as long as you did if you had been wrong more often.
Well, this is true. This is certainly true. But I really think that this kind of work at this kind of level, it requires that your work is of that level. And when you understand that, you just do it at that level. Now, there's a show that should have happened, didn't happen, has always had a great amount of work done on it to make it happen.
This is Hoagie and Bix.
This is Hoagie and Bix. It was a great idea, a good show, and obviously there was great music involved.
And also Captain America, Clarke.
Yes.
Which was a wonderful idea, and it was before its time. After years after this was done, superhero things all of a sudden started popping up all over the place.
And in fact, Marvel even made reference to a theatrical production of Captain America in TV shows and movies, when there was, in fact, one that was planned and designed.
But it never happened.
Right.
This one didn't happen, but it's just a question of timing.
Do you, as someone who pours so much effort into creating a vision like this, do you feel a sense of loss when it doesn't happen?
Frustration and loss. Obviously, a lot of money was spent trying to make it happen, not just by paying me to design. Paying me to design means paying a whole staff of people. So it's a huge effort. It's not something that I spend a great deal of time thinking about, because if it's happening, it's going to happen, and I've done what I'm doing. Rarely has it been a situation in which I get nailed for doing something that I shouldn't have done.
This show, Grind, it was Tony nominated, and it happened to be the same year as the show Big River. And every once in a while you have not very frequently actually, you have a situation where there's a show that kind of sweeps because it becomes very popular. So even though its set was much more simple, this one was extraordinarily beautiful and gorgeous and intricate. It's sometimes if you're coming the same year as another one that hits the wave, right, like the Big River, then it doesn't get known.
Now this particular one is on the 20th century, for which Clarke won the award in Chicago that's the equivalent of the Tony in New York, and it was beautiful. Need I say anything else? You're looking at it.
It looks beautiful,
Yes. Yeah.
But on an opening night, when the reviewers are there and there's so much at stake, people who are going to see the production aren't necessarily thinking about the person who designed the set. That they almost take it for granted that they would imagine that the people with really the most at stake are the actors and the directors, and yet without this vehicle, the acting and the directing wouldn't have the same effect.
Well, there's another level to that, which is did or did not the set get applause? And in this particular case, the set got applause several times because the changes were so surprising that it just became a character in the play, which is what it's supposed to be. In other situations where the play is quiet, and it's a play, not a musical, if you're really lucky, the curtain will go up and the set will get applause. In most of my cases, the set gets applause. I was asked at the end of my career to come back and design another show for Bucks County Playhouse, where I had done 70 shows, I guess, something like that. But apparently, the current design team was unaware of the fact that the set should get applause. So I was given the stage manager's notes after the show closed, and the first thing was, well, the set got applause tonight, opening night. And then the next day's note said, the set got applause again. And down through the week, I think the only time the set didn't get applause was on a Wednesday matinee. And 7 out of the 8 performances got applause. And did the set deserve it? Yeah, I think so.
I think that as a designer, you're really a conduit for the telling of the story, and every show has its own style, which needs to be realized in unity between the acting, the music, the design. And so you can't just have a style as a designer, because it has to take a metamorphosis to really embody, the message of the piece. And that's one of the things that he does so well, because a Shakespearean tragedy is going to look so different than a light musical, or an absurdist piece. And so the Marvel, all of these things just have a completely different personality, like people.
When you look at these, when you look at these models, are you able to sort of visually go back in your own memory to what it was like to be in the theater when these models became a reality?
Oh yes, it's an overwhelming feeling when the curtain goes up. It just is absolutely overwhelming, and what's been building and building and building before it. It's probably like a sports person seeing the home run that makes it, or whatever. One of the interesting experiences I had was when Ken Billington, who's quite famous lighting designer, used me to focus on. And I was standing, I cannot remember which stage, but I looked out and there was the audience. There was nobody there. It was all seats. And, he'd have me move here or move there and such. And that was pretty exciting. But the fact of the opening, and when the curtain goes up on one of Clarke shows and the audience screams out, it's pretty nice. It's pretty nice, because we know what went on in him the whole time it was being put together.
I was just going to say that when he was talking about working at Bucks County Playhouse, I was a toddler. And so, I've had this experience of this opening night, since my youngest childhood. And one of the most impressive experiences for me was when I was 5 years old and I saw Don Giovanni at at Lake George Opera, but for me, it wasn't really a set. It was like a portal to another world. And, partly because I was so young when I first started interacting with it, and I never lost that feeling. But I was sitting on the top edge of the chair because I was too small to sit on the chair down. And in front of me, I saw this statue come to life, and the floor open, and the flames come up, and the horror of the man being dragged down, and it was like I was like in a live dream, and so that portal it's always been like the feeling that I've had of being taken to another world.
There's a great side story to Pamela's story, and that is that was the first show that I designed for the Lake George Opera. And the Lake George Opera was a high school auditorium in Lake George, obviously. The rest of the story is that it was the first show I did there, and I took it on myself to fly to London to talk to the director. It became a running gag that, this is Don Giovanni, but it's a $500 production. And everybody was giggling and carrying on about it.
But it was absolutely real, absolutely believable.
There are always things with a stock company that make magic possible if you're smart enough to keep it from last week and repaint it. But there are always things like that. But in this particular case, it was absolutely the way that Pamela tells you. It literally took your breath away. And there was a production of Bohème in the same time period, which not only was that kind of effective, but got taken to New York and performed down there. Needless to say, it didn't look like a $500 production. Now, part of that is because of what I did, but part of it is the way life could be then, which it isn't anymore. And it can't be that way because you can't do anything for $500, which is a great tragedy because there are all kinds of bits of invention that aren't worth it anymore. They weren't worth it anymore then either, except that they were. It's one of the places that you got to be able to take chances. You could then, and you could a lot. Some of the smaller models down there, you'll see are basically very simple but very adventurous. And if I had a personal style, it would be way on the abstract side. And I was surprised that the more chance I had to work in that kind of style, not only the better I liked it, but the more profound I felt I was performing.
Do you think is what Pamela said a metaphor for what you always tried to do, the idea that these sets are a portal into another world?
Oh, yeah, sure. They have to be because they're not real. These in particular are very definitely a portal to an unreality.
Let me ask what might be a really simple question, but as someone who has never really studied theater, I'm willing to ask a question that might be obvious to everyone else. But it seems that as I look at all of these set models, whether they're really complex looking like the set from Grind or one of the more sparse sets, you're not just asking the person who's watching the play to take in the set, you're also asking them to fill in the empty spaces as well. Is that right?
Absolutely. If it's necessary. There are two levels to look at any of the less complex sets. more abstract sets, let's say. One is, yes, you, Mr. Audience Member, Miss Audience Member, where do you think you are? I'm not telling you. You better figure it out, though. And that's as important and exciting as showing them everything. That's why theater is theater. That's why opera is opera. The Garret in La Boheme is a very real place. And I made it a very, very real place in my productions. And because I had spent time in Paris and knew the venues, it was easy to do. Where to place some of those other scenes, other people have placed in public parks or so on. I placed it in a rail yard because that's where it felt like it was, or could be. Of course, the whole thing is could be, would be, might be. That's what this is all about. I'm saying it could be there, and I hope I'm right. And if you don't think so, I'm sorry, but try another production. I don't know. You've done what you felt you needed to do. Well, this is why they say it's your production.
Also, every show is a living organism because it interacts with its audience every night, and every performer and every designer is bringing a part of themselves to the story, and every receiver is bringing a part of themselves to the story. And that's how you can have the same line delivered in a similar way on two different nights and have two different reactions from the audience. But that's also the beauty of the art form.
And it is an art form. And it is, as Pamela has just said, a highly variable art form. And who knows what the reaction is truly going to be day to day, night to night. That's just it's one of the wonders and one of the great risks. You just did it right today, and tomorrow, well, people are going to laugh at you. You've done the best you can, and the best you can is generally 90%. So that's okay. But whatever that percentage of people who just don't see it that way, I can't try to please them. They're most likely not going to care to be pleased anyhow. It's hard to say it, just that's the way it is. Life is like that. Life is like that.
Legendary set designer Clarke Dunham speaking with us from his studio in Pottersville, New York. We're also hearing from his wife Barbara, who's played a key role in that work, and his daughter Pamela Ricker, who has been a director and now does set design work herself in television. But there is still the matter of the other huge models that fill much of the space of the Pottersville studio. Here is Act 3. So, at what point do trains enter the picture?
That's a very good question. I was always fascinated with model trains, but as a reader of Model Railroader, the magazine, never ever thinking I might do something right up to the point where I was doing something. It just happened along with the trains. People came and said, "You must be able to do this." And I said, "Well, I don't know." But then they said, "Well, we'll pay you." And I said, "Well, okay. What did you have in mind?" And the guys could be, and they were almost all guys, would have specific ideas. Some of them were perfectly legitimate, realistic, not realistic in the sense of what could really be done, but it was always, well, I need this, and I need that. And that is the one that's always the problem. It came down to the point of, well, how much is that worth to you? And enough cases, it came down to, Well, enough is whatever you say it is. And it got to be unbelievable to me. And then that came down to the point of, well, if you want it, I guess I can do it. And we're now into the hundreds of thousands of dollars for a train layout. I mean, not Citibank Station, which was a huge train layout, but for something to fit in your rec room. And then, of course, the question is, well, how big is that? And maybe it's 80 by 100. And he's really got that, and he wants it filled. So you make sure to get a huge down payment, 50%. So if it went bad, it went bad, but there's 50% there. And 50% could be $200,000. Now, what am I doing with Broadway? What am I doing with my theatrical career, which can't ever approach this? And the answer was, you figure it out. There were train seasons and there were theater seasons, and that's the only way I could figure that out. And sometimes the trains had to win.
It's interesting to think about when you're working on designing a set for a theater. You're accountable to the director, you're accountable to the cast, you're accountable to the audience, you're accountable to the production. And when you're designing a model train set, you're accountable to, in some cases, one single client.
That's right. And ordinarily, regardless of whether you were a mafioso or just a rich guy, you had a pretty good idea of what you wanted. So it wasn't hard to mimic what they thought they wanted, at least mimic it well enough so that they knew that's what they thought they wanted. That part wasn't really ever terribly a big problem because what we did was pretty impressive. And they got it, and they got it, and here it was in 3 dimensions. I don't have any solid recollection of whatever happened after that. Occasionally we'd get a guy and he'd be a faithful client, not for more layouts, but for constant information about it, constant repairs, constant updates. And I think in terms of not mafiosos, but of rich guys and mafiosos mixed in there.
We'll tell you a side story on that one. We did a job for a guy who will remain unnamed. He wanted to pay in cash, and he owed us
Thousands.
Yeah, it was in two paper bags, and we had to go home from Long Island with this money. What do? I had to go to the bathroom. You have to balance when you stop at the rest stop. Do you leave it in the car, or do you take it with you? Well, I took it with me, which was fine, but it was very funny. Turned out that he sponsored flea markets, and they paid him in 20s. And this must have been a couple of years worth of stuff. And that was the story of my $20 bills in brown paper bag.
So let me ask you a philosophical question here. We were talking in the studio about, kind of what the purpose of theater was, and the idea that, it's this portal into another world, but it also, at some level, tells us something about ourselves or causes us to think about.
The trains certainly do.
Well, yeah. So the question I have is, what do you think people are looking for when they
making their dreams alive?
It's as simple as that.
I think. You don't think?
No, I'm not saying it's not true. I'm just saying there's more. There's
more
every
to it.
person has their own motive. It's not like there's an answer for everyone.
No, it's true.
And then we had one guy in Long Island who, in his house, he wanted to recreate the Long Island Railroad from 1955. Complete with the trains and the cars and the boats and everything of 1955. Now for him, So maybe it's trying to find the happiness, that he felt at that time.
Pamela Ricker gets the last word in. She is the daughter of legendary set and model railroad designers Clarke and Barbara Dunham. And because our conversation can't totally do it justice, you can see photos of their work at ncpr.org/northwards. Thanks to the Dunhams for hosting me for an extended interview at their property in Pottersville. It was really amazing to spend time with them and hear about their lives. There's so much more that we talked about that couldn't make it into the interview, but maybe there will be Acts 4, 5, and 6 sometime down the road.
I have a little bit of set building in my background. Did I ever tell you that?
You did not tell me that.
I was in stage crew when I was in high school. I had a very, very brief junior high career on the stage, and then I decided, my talents are better behind the curtain. So I started.
You like wearing black?
I love wearing. That's all I wear. I was in stage crew from the time I think I was in 8th or 9th grade until I was a senior. I was stage director for a little while, which was an esteemed honor. And one of the projects that we undertook for the production of South Pacific was. Have you seen South Pacific?
It's been a long time.
Long time. Okay, yeah. There's the big scene where I forget the character's name, but she's singing, "I'm going to wash that man right out of my hair." And she's on an island, and the shower has been built into a tree. So we constructed this enormous shower tree, and it was a wood frame with chicken wire wrapped around it. And in order to give it that really unique tree look, we were kind of creating this weird paper mache hybrid. And so what we were doing, we were taking these like rags and like thousands of rags, Mitch, and we're dipping them in wheat paste, and then we are weaving them through the chicken wire and trying to figure out the best technique so that it will look like a tree. With gnarls and knots and stuff in it. It did not look like that. It looked horrible. And it took us I swear to God, we worked on this for weeks after school because we would meet from 3 until 6 twice a week for stage crew. And by the end of this thing, I think they ended up just using foam insulation to round it out. And then we painted the whole thing so it was brown and it had limbs or whatever. This thing was the bane of our existence. And Mrs. Duryea, our choral director, who was also the stage crew coordinator, promised us that when the year was done, we could destroy the tree. And it was the thing that we held on to all year long. And at the end of the year, she said, we might want to use the shower tree for another production. We were like, what? What other play has a shower tree in it? And I guess you could
West
turn it
Side
around.
Story,
West
of
Side
course.
Story has the big shower tree scene. And then I found out
Les Mis.
Yeah, the famous execution on the shower tree scene. And so I went off to college, and my brother continued to work in stage crew. And he told me one day, he's like, "I got to tell you something." I was like, "Oh no, what happened? Do you get kicked out of school or something?" And he's like, "No, we got to destroy the shower tree in stage crew today because a new woman had taken over running stage crew."
She's like, "What is this shower tree? Get rid of it."
Exactly. And I was livid. And then the news spread like wildfire among all of my friends, and we swore we'd go back and have our revenge, but we didn't. And that's it.
Your revenge was telling the story on this podcast.
And if I ever see another shower tree, it better look out.
Well, lots of stage credits for Clarke and Barbara Dunham and Pam Ricker as well. How about the credits of the people who come together to make this show possible, Ethan Shanty?
Northwards is an NCPR podcast production. The show is written, produced, and edited by Mitch Tyke with digital production supervision by me. I'm Ethan Shanty. Our theme music is by the Wickmore Jazz Trio of Plattsburgh. Caitlin Kelly is our social media manager, and Bill Hanel is our director of digital services. You can find more conversations, you can find photos, and a link to support this program at ncpr.org/northwards. This is NCPR North Country Public Radio.
Why is it 85 degrees in here?
It's been this way for a week. It's hell.